I have some fantastic friends in this room. It has been so inspiring to watch journalists from Nicaragua and Venezuela and Serbia and Russia talk here in the US about their experience. We have much to learn from them. Today I'm going to talk about a study we've been doing about digital natives. But first I have to start by thanking the gentleman here at the center of this room who is absolutely 20 years ago, I met this man, and you have inspired my work ever since. But Sembra Media, which I had the great honor of launching with my co-director, Michal Strebner, a year and a half ago, is so inspired by you, your MOOCs, and the Knight Center. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And to the other board members here, Maria, Patricia, James, and Neil, we couldn't do it without you. You are our early first supporters. I also have to thank the team. Over the last year and a half, I've been incredibly honored to bring together a team. Michal and I work full-time on Sembra Media. She really focuses on the team, but we have brought together the superstars of digital media. They work part-time for us. They work more than full-time on their own digital media sites. But it is their diverse experience that's helped us to really research this market. Over the last 18 months, we have discovered by researching, by very carefully studying, more than 600 digital media sites that meet our criteria. We've put them into a searchable directory at sembramedia.org, and you can go there and filter by country, by content type, and many other factors. You should know this does not represent every blogger in Latin America. We have a very strict criteria that we publish in English and Spanish that we developed as a team. You have to create original content in Spanish, you have to do it regularly, and you have to have some level of transparency that lets us verify that you have more than one source of income, and especially that that one source is not just the government. In that context, I was especially interested to see that these are not just new media. I think there's a misconception that there's some kind of new thing happening in Latin America, and certainly it's been accelerated in the last few years. But if you look at the first ones, they started in the mid-1990s. There are several digital natives in Latin America that are more than 20 years old already. And more than half of the 600 in our directory are more than 4 years old, which shows that they're already getting beyond that really big hurdle of the first couple of years of entrepreneurs. In that context, I got to meet Felipe Stefan from Omidyar, and he said, you know, we're thinking about hiring somebody to study business models in Latin America. And I said, ooh, we could do that. And with their incredible support, we looked very deeply into Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico. 10 researchers spent 2 hours each on 100 digital media sites asking more than 130 questions about what works, what doesn't work, what they're doing well. And it really complements our study. For those of you who don't know Omidyar Network, they're a kind of a hybrid, a philanthropic investment organization. They support for-profits and nonprofits, and they're increasingly supportive of journalism. If you've been hiding under a rock, maybe you didn't hear that they recently committed $100 million to supporting journalism and the combating of fake news around the world. It's an honor to work with them. When we selected these 100 sites, we tried to get the best in these countries, but we also worked very hard to get a representative sample. So they're not all the big, giant ones. We also have hyperlocal and some niche sites in there, just to make sure that we were really studying the full market. By far, the biggest headline of all of it was women. 60% of the founders of those 100 sites were women, and 40% of all of the founders we studied were women. Women, if you are struggling with the glass ceiling in your news organizations, my best advice is build your own house. To put in context, even across the 600 media sites in our directory, more than 37% are women. And to put that further in context, a recent study in Mexico found that ownership of television and newspapers, all the traditional media in Mexico, less than 1% are owned by women. These numbers really are striking. And just to put a light on some of the women who are here, Natalia Viana from Agencia Pública, you can clap if you want. Juanita León from La Cia Vacía. These are leaders and models who are generously teaching other people what they do. Elaine Diaz represents us in Cuba. And I should clarify that we have been studying Cuba. These are very preliminary results. We couldn't go quite as deeply in that country for reasons I don't have to explain to this audience, and we're not ready to release them. But I want to give Atlantic credit for being able to do research in one of the more complicated countries we work in. And even just to have been able to create her own digital media site there. For those of you who haven't seen, this used to be her profile photo until very recently. She gets Wi-Fi from the public park across the street, and with her window open and her computer balanced in the window, she can almost get Wi-Fi most of the time. This is what it looks like when she's waiting for Wi-Fi in Cuba. One of the most striking things is that nearly all of the 100 founders that we talked to said that their primary motivation for creating a new digital media site was creating an independent voice in their country. You've heard that over and over, but we found that across the board. It is the #1 incentive. It's not because they're being laid off. It's not because they don't have anything else to do. It's because they want to make sure that people are informed and that the polarization and the control in their countries is balanced by real journalism. They're covering lots of things, news, narcos, but they're covering underserved communities too. Gender issues, indigenous groups, LGBTQ, things that other media traditionally have not covered, and it's part of why we support their work. Content rules for these digital journalists, often at the expense of business. On average, about 23% of the team are working on content, 2 on technology, and 1 is trying to raise enough money to support the rest of them. In 40-some% of the cases, that 1 is also the founder doing everything else. This is something we're trying to change. They are doing exceptional journalism. They are winning awards in record numbers now. Last fall at the Gabriel Garcia Marquez Awards, all of the winners in that contest were digital natives. When the Pulitzer Prizes were announced recently and the Panama Papers were included, several of our team members and the sites in our directory worked on that project from the beginning and share in that award. They're doing serious journalism. And they're breaking stories that other media in their country can't break. And what we're finding is that they're doing original investigative work, and they're investing tremendous resources in it. And they're doing stories that other media, because of government control or limitations or restrictions, can't. But once they do, they're getting picked up. So after they break these stories, they start to get picked up by traditional media. And not only in their own countries. 2/3 of them said their work was getting picked up in international media. And again, we can track that because this is original investigative work that shows up later in international press. They're having an impact. They're making a little money. On average, about $200,000. That's because there's some outliers like El Diario pushing the limits. Thank you, you're a model to us all. But the median's around $45,000 to $50,000. It's not enough to be sustainable forever, but they're starting to figure it out, and they're starting to get smart about it. 10 reported no media, no revenue at all. That's another thing we're trying to work on. Those of you who are entrepreneurs will be interested to see banner advertising is still really important. Native advertising and branded content coming up strong. We think this is a great opportunity if you have the right policy and you do it carefully to protect your journalism. Google AdSense, thank you Google, training services, events. Further down the line, you start to see grants and donations, which we think is one of the most important things moving forward. This is important because one of the most common methods of retribution against these folks is governments withdrawing advertising. In Mexico, the largest advertiser in the country is the government. And there are literally hundreds of digital natives in Mexico that are not in our directory because if that's your only source of income, we want to help you diversify first. Our mantra is diversified revenue is how you have strength and independence. Chequeado is our model for that. If you go to the financial page on Chequeado, you will see, to guarantee our sustainability and independence, we have a diversified revenue strategy. They have shown that you can make money and do the best journalism in the world. Laura, you did a fantastic job yesterday in your presentation. This is why when I do seminars on the 12 ways to make money with your digital media site, I teach everybody the money dance. When I talk to other people who work with entrepreneurs and I say the first thing I have to do is convince them that money's not evil, they think I have a really hard job. But in the middle of my seminar, I make them do a dance that's about imagining what they're going to do to celebrate money when they make it, and it really helps. 20% of them are getting grants. It is a misconception, I think, of many people in this room that there's more grant money out there than there is. Across all 100, when we look deeply, they only got 1.3 million, and these were the best in their countries. There is lots more room for investment. And those grants are not only coming from the US, we're seeing more and more European influence there and donations from European foundations. They're muy mobile, no surprise to anyone that more than 50% of their traffic comes on mobile devices. But I find this really heartening because as we see the digital divide get filled with new kinds of technology, mobile is the way people are coming online. Social media is important. All of them use Facebook. Most of them use Twitter. Kind of interesting to see Snapchat at the bottom of that list and Telegram coming up in importance. That's about communicating securely with each other and their audiences. There are some fantastic outliers. Quebrando o Tabu in Brazil has more than 7 million likes on Facebook, and they are not alone. Many of the sites in our directory are in the millions and millions of Twitter followers and likes. But they're vulnerable. They're under attack. 45% report that they've had threats or actual violence. 50% have suffered cyber attacks. And they're being attacked by auditors. In Argentina and Mexico, historically, they just get hit with an audit that went on forever. In Brazil, we found a site, Congresso em Foco. After publishing the expense reports of their government officials, they were hit with 50 lawsuits. To date, they've won 48 of them, 2 are pending. But I don't have to tell you that is a huge expense for a small organization and a real vulnerability that we've discovered in our work and our research, even worse than we thought it was. So I'm going to end with some keys to survival, what we think all of us need to do to help these folks. First, money, investment, grants, donations. If you have money, give it to them. They will use it wisely. Business training, that's something we're really focused on, trying to help them develop those business models and use our research to train them. Bail money. If you don't know what bail money is, because English isn't your first language, that's the money you use to get out of jail after you've been arrested. Self-defense training, I'm serious. Technical support, help with recruitment. Journalists are not very good at hiring and managing salespeople. We're trying to figure out how to supplement that for them. Moral support in a community, that's really the heart of what we're trying to do at Sembra Media. We started as a research organization. We spent the last year and a half trying to understand and humbly study this market, what's working, what's not, where are the best practices to share. Now we're going back with training. We're launching an online school. We're starting to have events to turn that directory into a community, and we're looking at ways to develop shared resources and negotiate better deals so you guys can save money and use that money you make more effectively. I want to end by thanking this amazing team that helped make it possible. These are the folks that actually worked on this deep study. Expect more. This is just the preliminary report. We're just hoping a little buzz comes out today, but we will have much more information in the future. Thank you all. We love partnering. Please help us help them.